Hello again, I'm Robert Fithen, and today I want to talk to you about cheap thrills, vinyl records that you can actually find relatively inexpensively. With the big price of records just jumping up, I thought it'd be at least a public service to let you know about some great records that you don't have to pay an arm and a leg for, like The Pretenders, actually. I was kind of surprised to find out The Pretenders actually don't cost that much. You can get this album for like anywhere from like $5 to $8, and it's a 5-star album, like I mentioned in one of my other videos, and you can get this one, Learning to Crawl, and probably Pretenders too, for a relatively low price as well. So yeah, the Pretenders. If you can't, you don't want to spend a bunch of money on Blondie records that are shooting up in price, maybe check out the Pretenders. Like I said, $5 to $8, sometimes maybe 10 if it's a mint condition or something like that. I was really surprised that these are not that much. Also, Jefferson Airplane. If you get a later pressing, like a later '60s pressing of this album or this album, not going to run you too much money. Again, like $8 to $10 or something for a great Jefferson Airplane album. Both of these are pretty stellar. This one, however, is stellar as well, but you're going to probably pay for this one. But yeah, these two are great as well, even if they don't have White Rabbit or Somebody to Love on them. But yeah, check out Jefferson Airplane. Again, just relatively, cheap, $8 to $10 for the album. Some great African, real exotic sounds, and you get this wonderful Roger Dean artwork on the gatefold of this. This is Osibisa, and yeah, this came out in the early 70s, and a great, just kind of worldly, rhythmic album that you can get for, again, $5, $8, $10. Don't pass up on this one, Osibisa, and this is the debut album. They've got a couple of others, but this one is probably the best one. You want your rock a little bit harder, you want to crank it all the way up. You know about Nazareth, right? You have any Nazareth albums? Maybe you should if you're into hard rock. And these are the three, man. They released these three in a row. This one's pretty good, but these two right here are absolutely stellar. A lot of fun, a lot of heaviness, AC/DC kind of sound going on here. AC/DC albums, really expensive. These, not so much. This one especially. This is one of the first hard rock albums, probably the first hard rock album I ever heard. Fell in love with it when I was like, I don't know, 5 years old, especially that song that says son of a bitch over and over again. The title track, Hair of a Dog, of course, what I'm talking about. But yeah, 5-star album here. And this one pretty much maybe a 4.5-star album. But yeah, Nazareth costs you anywhere, for, again, $5, $8, $10. This one, though, you got to pull the record out and check for conditions. A lot of people beat this album up for some reason whenever they had it. So you got a lot of them out there that are kind of wrecked. You like just basic good time rock and roll, man, with no frills? Don't sleep on the Georgia Satellites and their debut. Of course, you probably don't keep your hands to yourself. This whole album is great. And again, you can find this in dollar bins. You can find this in dollar bins are now $3 bins. So I guess I should say $3 bins is where you can find this Georgia Satellites album. But yeah, their debut, their follow-up couple are are good as well. But this one is stellar. Songs on here like Red Light and Can't Stand the Pain. A lot of great stuff on here. Battleship Chain. Just like I said, good time, straightforward, heavy rock and roll. Like you walk into a bar, like similar to like George Thorogood I was talking about on an earlier video. And his albums go for relatively cheap as well. Now, Jim Croce puts out stellar albums. Singer-songwriter, of course, of the 70s. Died young in a plane crash and only was able to give us these 3 albums. Of course, there's greatest hits packages and posthumous releases. But these are the 3. And of course, Bad Leroy Brown and, Don't Mess Around with Jim, Time in a Bottle, and all those great songs. But the album tracks on here that aren't singles are just as good, sometimes better. The one about the Roller Derby Queen, man, you got to have the album with that on there. And again, we're getting real cheap. These can be found for $1 or $3. Matter of fact, I remember I do reviews on Instagram. My Instagram page is Robert Fithen Vinyl, and I do kind of lengthy reviews on the album I'm listening to that day. And I remember I reviewed, I think it was this one, and said it was stellar, one of the best albums, especially listening to it on vinyl. It's got that warm feel. And some smartass was like, you can find Jim Croce albums in the dollar bin anytime. God. Yeah, so what? That's not a sign of quality, the price. Yeah, you can find these in the dollar bin. That's the great thing about it. Get them while you can. What about like more psychedelic type releases, like psych pop especially, because I'm always talking about the psych stuff. You can still find some relatively obscure, not the huge bands, not totally obscure, Frigid Pink with House of the Rising Sun. You can still get this for around $8 to $10, and then you have yourself, you'd be a proud owner of one of the original psych albums from the 60s. And yeah, it's got some other great tracks in here, but too, these guys are best known for their remake of House of the Rising Sun. Frigid Pink with that cool pink cover, or the Collectors from Vancouver, who later became Chilliwack. But don't let that deter you, because Chilliwack's kind of awful, but this is actually pretty good. This is more like, again, in the pop psych thing. The lyrics of this are super trippy. It's kind of got a little bit of a lack of energy. It's kind of like a more of a mellow thing. It doesn't get way far out, but the lyrics are kind of cool. It's got a few trippy tunes on here, a lot of chant-like stuff, and some like saxophone too, if you're into that. But yeah, the Collectors, this album or their debut, this will probably run you around $10 to $12, but it is, you know, an original psych pressing. Fat Mattress, the same thing. They've got a Jimi Hendrix you know, connection here with Noel Redding on vocals and guitar. Fat Mattress, great psych rock thing. Not mind-blowing, but again, it's going to cost you like $8 to $10 probably on the Atco label, an original pressing of this. It's again, you get to have a relic from the 60s psych era. Fever Tree, same way. They got San Francisco Girls. It's a West Coast group, and you can find this just about everywhere for sometimes $5. You know, I've seen this go for, and that's what I got mine for. And, you know, only, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years ago, they're still pretty cheap. Fever Tree, and they've got another one that follows this up called Another Time and Place. So check that one out too. I haven't got a chance to get that one, but this one, pretty good stuff. Again, not blowing you away. It's not Jimi Hendrix or, you know, something like that. It's not Kaleidoscope, Tangerine Dream, but it is a nice psych album. And for $5 and $8, what do you want? Now, this one I just got. The Color House and the Glitter House and Color Blind. I love that kind of foil color there, and let me tell you, that's the best reason to have this album. It's more pop. It's way in the pop side of pop psych. In fact, side 2, they just drop the psych altogether and go full on pop. Kind of sounds like a low rent version of like the Grassroots meets the Rascals or something with Johnny Rivers on vocals. They're from New York. They were only around for like a couple of minutes. Bob Crew, who produced the Four Seasons and also discovered Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, produced these guys. It's not great, but again, $5 to $8, and it's super obscure. You can maybe put it in a frame and go, look, I've got an obscure psych album. Not really one to listen to all the time, though. But if you want an absolute classic, Gotta Devita, the whole second side. You know, they got some good tracks on side 1 as well, like Flowers and Beads, Termination, but, you know, you're going to get this for the classic track that takes up all of side 2, the full version of Gotta Devita, baby, and with the organ, and, I mean, that great riff, Iron Butterfly, and again, an $8 to $10 album, because these things were in print for like 30 years, and they were super easy to find. There's millions of copies of this. And for some reason, thankfully, it's still relatively inexpensive. So if you've got a psych collection, you know, make sure that you have this in here for relatively cheap. Now, what if you like something more along the lines of political, you know, satire kind of mixed in with your pop psych and your psych rock and stuff like that, and you want like something like The Mothers of Invention, but you really don't want to pay $50 for a Frank Zappa album? Well, you could get the Fugs. They're very similar, kind of like a similar version to the Mothers. They got dirty words and stuff. They're on a Warner label too, Reprise. This is pretty much a $10 album. The Fugs, this one is an earlier one. This one's kind of harder to find because it's their debut. It's going to run you a little more. But yeah, this one, Tenderness Junction from the Fugs. Pretty fun stuff there. And you get the late 60s social satire. You get some of the humor. Like I said, you get the obscenities that you would love with a Mothers of Invention album without the high price. Now, I would have said, and I said it in a video like last year or whatever, Steve Miller Band, I just happened to mention it. I have all of his, pretty much. The early Sykes bluesy stuff, the later more hit-oriented stuff with the synths in it and stuff like that. I love it all. I don't have a stopping point, really. Well, I do have a stopping point. It's Abracadabra. But love this, love Fly Like an Eagle, love the early stuff. And I used to say you could get these for inexpensive, but the price of these albums are going up. Even this one, even Fly Like an Eagle, going up. So that's what I'm saying. Get these while you can, because you never know. I don't know who decides on these psych prices, but it seems like somebody makes a decision and then the price just skyrockets out of nowhere. Just like this right here. This used to be a $1 album all day, all evening. Well, up until the store closed, basically. This was a $1 album. Now you can't get this for under 15, 20 bucks. There's millions of these out there. Fleetwood Mac Rumors? Really? It's a $25 album now, $20 album. Same thing with Boston's debut. That's a multi-platinum album as well that I mean, it used to be $1, $2, and that's for an original orange label Epic. Now you get the blue Epic, that's $15. I saw somebody trying to sell Boston's debut on Discogs, $7 with shipping. It was $12 because that's how much shipping is apparently. $12, no cover. That's where Boston's debut is now. $12 for a Boston album with no cover. So yeah, don't wait. You know, get them because somebody will just make the decision that it's a $30 album, and then one day they'll all be $30. I don't know who does that. Prince, just like the Frank Zappa stuff, this stuff is shooting way up in price. So maybe you don't want to spend a bunch of money on Prince. Well, you can get Ready for the World for $3, or even the Jesse Johnson's review. Look at that dude wants to be, he was in Prince's band for a while, but yeah, that dude wants to be Prince, man. I love the song Can You Help Me, but yeah, that's, maybe you can't afford Prince, you can get the Jesse Johnson's review for $1. Decent album from 1985, and the Ready for the World album has Oh Sheila on it, and, you know, Love You Down, and a bunch of hits as well. Back to the psych stuff, Moody Blues, man. Thankfully, these are still relatively inexpensive, and they're great. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say you should run out and buy, like, Long Distance Voyager or, you know, whatever that EP they came out with. But yeah, their early stuff, I'm not a big fan of the first one, but yeah, this one, On Threshold of a Dream, or In Search of the Lost Chord, or Every Good Boy Deserves Favor, any of those are great, and they're usually $8 to $10 in great condition. So yeah, don't pass up the Moody Blues just because they're too popular or whatever. They got great, you know, kind of dreamy, kind of psych moments on here. They got some incredible songs, actually, and you should definitely check out some Moody Blues if you like the lighter psych stuff, the dreamy stuff, and don't want to spend a bunch of money. Same thing with the Monkees. How many budget bins have you seen the Monkees in? Now, their earlier stuff, obviously, is more romp-oriented to go along with their TV show, but they did get kind of psych out after a while. Now, Head, the soundtrack, is great, but it's going to run you a little more money. This one is a little more expensive. But ones like this, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, and Jones Limited, this is great. Doesn't have a lot of Mickey on this album. There's a lot of Mike. But it's got great little pieces of psych in there, like psych pop type stuff. The Birds, the Bees, and the Monkees, same way. So yeah, maybe check those two out. And again, you can probably find this for $3. Another one like the Nazareth, watch the condition of these though, because there's no shortage of really poor condition Monkees albums that look like they've been through a war. Canned Heat, their first few albums are getting up there in price, and so is Hooker and Heat. You won't be able to find this for cheap anymore, the double album they did with John Lee Hooker. But their mid-range albums that they did like in the middle of their career, like this one, Hallelujah, or this one, Future Blues, still get these for $8 to $10, maybe $12. And Canned Heat, man, you can't go wrong. If you like your blues, just no-nonsense, straightforward blues with a little bit of social commentary in there, great feel-good music, Canned Heat is the way to go. They do a little bit of psych stuff, not too much. But I love Canned Heat, and thankfully, you can still pick up some great Canned Heat for $8 to $10. And what about disco? You know, Donna Summer, the queen of disco. This is a double album, Bad Girls. This is her huge one, produced by Giorgio Moroder. And this thing you can find for $2 and $3. A double album with Bad Girls and Hot Stuff and a bunch of great album tracks on here, though. I don't think there's too many bad songs on here. Like I said, even the deeper cuts are terrific. It's like a nonstop disco party. But yeah, you see this everywhere for like $2. And I'm not, maybe one day it'll be like Boston and Fleetwood Mac. Something will happen. She's already passed away, so that's not going to happen. But, you know, something will happen and Donna Summer will be revered and all of a sudden up go the prices. Same thing if you're looking for something a little more funky like the Commodores. Some of their mid-level stuff, still you can get that for like $1, $2. It's funky stuff, man. It's not bad, especially for those prices. But yeah, Donna Summer, Bad Girls, Commodores, Village People, if you want a little more campy, a little more fun, their stuff is shooting up in price all of a sudden. So those are just some examples of some psych, some disco, some singer-songwriter stuff, some rock blues stuff, some hard rock stuff, some kind of punkish new wave stuff. You can still get for reasonable, low prices, but don't wait. Because like the Boston, like the Fleetwood Mac, like the Steve Miller Band, they could just shoot up in price like over the weekend and suddenly everybody on Discogs is charging $20, $25, $35 for an album. So there's some good examples. But one last thing, maybe you're like, I don't want, that's not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is shitty music at a high price. Got you covered. Got you covered. Check it out. And the Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab version, if you don't like mid-range, you'll pay even more. Even worse. I'm Robert Fithen. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider giving the video a thumbs up and possibly subscribing. It would help out a lot with the algorithms or whatever. Thanks to all the vinyl community people making those great vinyl community videos. Keep them coming. Thanks again. I'm going to put this down now.